we can see from this group that you are quite seasoned in this area, and you may have been on the receiving end of that pain and suffering that I talked about earlier, waiting, praying, hoping, wishing somebody would please get to the point. And maybe sometimes you've been struck with that particular challenge yourself. But those reports were excellent, and clearly there is a wealth of knowledge here to be shared. So we thank you immensely for taking the time and investing of yourself to do that. The next part of the program, we'll have approximately 10 minutes for this, is a Q&A. So we're going to open this up to you. Anything you want to ask either Melissa or me, if we don't have the answer, we'll make it up. And you can certainly feel free to go from the pointers if you want to use that as a starting place, or if you want to go beyond that and ask us something relative to communication in the business setting. When you ask your question, if you specifically would like Melissa to respond, then please indicate that, or if you prefer that I do so. And if it really doesn't matter, then we'll field the questions back and forth. Who has the first question?
I do.
Yay!
I'm Julianne Callery, so I'm from Burke and Casterly. My question is, when you are on the receiving end of a conversation, not a presentation, but a conversation that does not get to the point, how can we as an active listener encourage that person to get to the point?
I love that question. Wish I had an answer. Do you want one of us in particular to respond?
So the first thing I would make sure is that, of course, we never want to offend the person we're communicating with. So you should use some type of cushion or ease into the things you're going to ask them to do. And I would say, look, I'm very interested in what we're talking about here. I am on a bit of a time schedule, so let's refocus and cover these two things, and then we can talk about these other things later on offline. That's one suggestion.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. May I add to that? I'm allowed to? She said I could interrupt at least once, so I'm going to interrupt now. Actually, interrupting is perfectly acceptable. Yes, you heard me say it, Dale Klein, profitable speech. But what do you mean interrupting is okay? Well, it is in a situation where you are enduring that pain and suffering that I keep referring to. And you know what's a beautiful way to interrupt? What do you think? You use the person's name. Yes. Because what did Dale Carnegie say about a person's name, Melissa?
Sweetest sound to an individual.
There you go. So we love hearing our name. So you say, excuse me, Cara Conway Love, if you wish, and you say, I'm understanding the following about your point, and then you might paraphrase it, because hopefully you did understand what they say. And usually when a person feels reassured that you indeed listened to them and you got it, then they are willing to start winding down. Now, I did not say this was a guarantee, and we can go to extreme measures if we need to, but typically if we interrupt and we say, oh, Kim, let me see if I understood, and then you say, good, I've got it. Let's move on to other subjects. That's a nice way of gently prodding and using their name. That's what people respond to. Next question. Yes, Cara Conway Love. Isn't that convenient?
Yeah,
so you mentioned their name and they say,
I have on the other side, the flip side of that.
Flip side.
A lot of times I'll be talking to a client about a legal issue, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm not being condescending to them. So it's something that a lot of people, maybe they're not familiar with what I'm explaining to them, and I'll find that I'm the one doing all the talking, so I'll purposely interrupt myself and say, does that make sense to you? Is that helpful? But I always worry, not always, but depending on the other personality, to make sure that I'm not condescending them. I don't want to insult someone. So can you address that?
I would be happy to. I have to watch myself. I'm talking to an attorney, very important. I get very nervous. So let me see if I have something of value to say. Cara, that's a really good question. And I think a lot of professionals really find themselves in that situation. So it's great that you're that sensitive to your audience. Now, the best way to do that, I prefer when I'm working with a client explaining, let's say, about diaphragmatic breathing, and they say, what the heck is that? So what I do is instead of saying, do you understand that? Because you know what people do? And they don't. It's really but they say because nobody wants to look stupid. So I don't say, do you understand that? Because that's a closed question. Instead, I say something like this. I'm not 100% sure how clear I was on that. What was your understanding of how to breathe effectively? So something like that. So I put the onus on me and say, as I listen to myself, I don't really know if that was too clear. Do me a favor. Tell me what your take was on that. and then they're happy to, and then I really can tell, versus which might mean zero. I mean, they might be true, but you don't want to rely on that. Did that answer your question sufficiently?
Yeah, that's great.
Anything you'd like to add?
No, I would
Cook?
do the same.
You do the same.
Dave.
All right. Next question. Yes, indeed. Please say who you are.
Hi, I'm Sandy. I'm from Mildred Ellie. And I have a question, I hope it's appropriate. When I give presentations, I say, or what I do is I kind of lose track, or is it okay to kind of refer to my notes to stay on point? And how do you avoid saying, I mean, and I try to also keep people, I can notice when I'm losing them and try to reel them back in with a little haha something. Is that appropriate?
Sandy, thank you for asking. Preference for Melissa or for me to answer?
No preference.
So I would say, first of all, I think we can both address it.
I would love to.
No.
I just follow wherever Melissa goes.
I'm just saying.
She's a leader.
I would suggest that it's okay to be comfortable with some pauses. When you're giving a presentation, you're not really a DJ. You don't have to fill every second of time. Usually and, you know, those types of word whiskers that float around when nothing else is coming out of your mouth, usually those are just fillers because we're thinking about what we're going to say next. So I would say, first of all, you're aware of it. That's terrific. Second of all, try filling it with a period and a slight pause. And become comfortable with pauses. They can be very, very effective. One caution, once you're aware that you have this word whisker that keeps popping up, you'll become worse before you get better. It's like when you buy a car, all of a sudden you start seeing that same car all around. So be willing to work through that, keep working on it, and the ums will disappear as you become more comfortable with pausing and thinking. Remember, we're not all very fast communicators. Getting to the point doesn't necessarily mean being fast. It means being strategic. It's okay to, most of us don't talk at a rapid rate of speed. That's okay.
Word whisker? Is that a Dale Carnegie term or a Melissa Cook term? I've never heard that. It is? 'Cause I've been doing this a long time. I never heard that. No, I like to call
You
it.
haven't taken our course yet.
She's good. She is good. That subtle sales approach works every time. Love it, love it. I actually like to call them verbal viruses, because that seems like something you want to get rid of. So Sandy, great question. And you win the award for the most popular question that I hear all the time when I speak to clients. And in addition to the great advice that Melissa gave, one of my favorites is, first of all, to reinforce that a speaker's best friend, if you're taking notes, write this down, speaker's best friend is the pause. It's the sign of a confident and polished speaker. It marks you as somebody who is confident enough with silence. Those who are constantly filling in, not so much. So think about that as a motivator. Also, in addition to the great advice that Melissa Cook gave you, I've tried using this with clients and they tell me that it works, so I'm going to share it with you. And that is to think the pause, to think the word that you would fill in, think it in your head. In other words, say it silently, you know. And by the way, some people have vocal fillers. Those are even worse. I'm coaching a gentleman right now from, where is he from? Mumbai, and he likes to do this. I'm talking every 10 seconds. I said, what's with the He said, I don't think I do that. What are you talking about? So that was part of my biggest challenge. Yeah, my job's interesting. So we've got the vocal filler action going on. Then we have the vocal verbal virus going on. I'm telling you, it's a mess out there. So first of all, he had to hear it. He didn't hear it, so I video recorded him. That certainly helped. He fell on the floor. After I picked him up and resuscitated him, I worked with him on actually how to swallow. In his case, he has some allergies going on, so I worked with him on how to swallow more effectively and use some water to hydrate to really deter that particular need in his brain that's telling him, clear your throat, clear your throat. And so it's the same thing. So think the word think the word but don't say it, and watch the power. Because when you're silent, everybody is digesting the wonderful information you just presented.